This is your World War III Prepper News emergency update. At the time of making this video at exactly 1:58 p.m. Central Standard Time, the U.S. State Department is ordering the evacuation of non-essential personnel from embassies in Iraq, Bahrain, and Kuwait, signaling for some that a kinetic engagement is imminent. We also have the UK maritime trade operation warning of potential threats to shipping in the Gulf amid rising tensions. Currently, Iran is reportedly stepping up GPS jamming over parts of Iran, targeting the airspace that is being used by military aircraft. The electronic disruption appears to coincide with the ongoing joint U.S.-Israeli operations that are being observed by people on the ground. They're noticing increased aviational activity right now, particularly in northern Iraq, which of course is a potential pathway of attack if the Israelis were about to conduct a strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, just because the U.S. State Department and the Whitehouse, for that matter, has issued these voluntary advisories for non-essential personnel to leave embassies and military bases throughout the region, this doesn't mean that an attack is imminent. In fact, we've often seen in the past 18 months that these embassy warnings are typically issued weeks, if not months, in advance to any actual kinetic engagement materializing. But it's worth noting that this thing could happen abruptly. And of course, if they want to continue with this phony narrative that Trump and Netanyahu are at odds, then it would look pretty suspicious if they pulled out non-essential personnel well in advance of an attack, because that, of course, would signal that they had advanced knowledge of what was about to go down. So it very well could go down starting in the next day or few days. It could happen immediately, although I don't think Israel would risk potentially jeopardizing American personnel and non-essential staff at these embassies, because, of course, they will be a target of Iran's retaliation. As indicated, U.S. military dependents have been cleared for voluntary departure from multiple Middle East bases. It's important to note that these decisions did not come from Fleet Forces Command. They likely originated from the White House level. In fact, Pete Hegseth himself has commented on it, and apparently Donald Trump is actually overseeing these operations above CENTCOM. U.S. Navy base in Bahrain is on high alert. As I indicated, the Iranians are on the highest state of alert. State evacuation plans in Baghdad include the use of commercial flights, but military is currently standing by. The UK maritime trade operations is warning of potential threats to shipping in the Gulf amid rising tensions. Vessels are advised to transit the Arabian Gulf, Gulf of Oman, and Straits of Hormuz with caution, and are to report incidents of suspicious activity to the UK MTO. If that Strait of Hormuz gets closed, the price of oil is going to go through the roof. Right now, oil is spiking somewhere between 4.5 to 5%. According to Polymarket, betting options are that there's going to be an attack on Iran before July. I believe it's now increased close to 50%. The Iranian president, Pezeshkian, is saying that they want us to abandon our nuclear capabilities so Israel can drop a bomb on our heads. So is that a tacit admission then that the reason for preserving the ability to enrich uranium to high levels is as a potential threat to Israel or as a deterrent? So it's somewhat of a tacit admission that regardless of the fatwa, which is a religious edict that bans the development of nuclear weapons in Islamic nations, and of course that's very subject to interpretation, despite of that they reserve the right to have that capability such that they were attacked, they could then develop a nuclear weapon. It appears as though a war with Iran is a foregone conclusion. They just have to do all this preamble stuff. They have to make it look as though Netanyahu and Trump are at odds. So it's good cop, bad cop. As I've been previously stating over the past couple weeks, if Trump wanted to prevent a war with Iran, all he would have to do to hamstring the Israelis would say, we're not going to come to your defense if you attack Iran, period, point blank. And if they did that, Israel could not attack. So the fact that he is not restraining Israel in that manner tells you everything you need to know. In fact, it is evidenced in the constant weapons flows in that direction, and in fact, in the redirection of some weapons from Ukraine to Israel. According to the IRGC commander, Hussein Salami of Iran, Iran is ready to fight all scenarios with increased high-speed naval vessels and advanced missile capability. The Gulf is considered a vital defense zone. There are currently reconnaissance planes flying just outside the Straits of Hormuz, as well as the Persian Gulf. Now, this is not out of the ordinary. This is a normal sortie that gets flown pretty much on a daily basis. But of course, in the current environment, it is more noteworthy. Iran warns that it may strike U.S. bases if the conflict escalates, and that is from Reuters. So we have the Iranians essentially saying that if they are attacked by Israel, there's a potential that they could attack American bases, and they reserve the right to have the capability to produce a nuclear weapon. And they've also recently stated yesterday that based on the intelligence that they've gathered from a source that has not been disclosed as of yet, although we suspect that it was something to do with what happened on October 7th when Hamas was able to infiltrate Unit 8200 and the Israeli military base, capturing many high-ranking commanders, that information, of course, has fallen into the hands of the Iranians, and they are now claiming, in addition to possibly attacking the Dimona nuclear facility, if we are struck with nuclear weapons, we are also going to target Israel's nuclear stockpile, in which we know where it is stored. Now, are all the Israeli nukes, are they all on submarines? Not much is known about the program. It's very secretive, as it probably should be. It's the only country that sort of makes sense in this day and age, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing that Israel is not signatory to the Non-Proliferation Treaty. I don't think that there should be a double standard. That should be obvious to anybody with half a brain. But in a rational world, you wouldn't disclose anything about your nuclear weapons. But because there was treaties with the Russians, the Americans, we know a little bit. We don't know about the Chinese nuclear weapons. Anyways, that's neither here nor there. President Trump is currently monitoring evacuations and receiving regular updates. Senator Lindsey Graham was asking Pete Hegseth in one of these depositions, I don't know what they're called, one of these congressional conferences where they're interrogating, members of government. Lindsey Graham asked whether Iran would use nuclear weapons on Israel. General Dan Kane responded, potentially, and Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said yes. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, of course, has stated that there's no evidence that the Iranians are working on a nuclear weapon. But notice the question that was posed by Senator Lindsey Graham as to whether Iran would nuke Israel if they had them. And of course, if what? If they were nuked themselves, would they use a nuke? Obviously, right? So obviously, Hegseth is going to say yes. And this, of course, comes a day after that really ominous and uncanny PSA that Tulsi Gabbard did, where she's talking about the horrors of nuclear war, not specifying any country in particular, talking about how the political elites have their bunkers. And this is from the National Intelligence Advisor, which is crazy to think. But I think that they were priming us. They were priming the population there with the emotional angst ado with nuclear weapons. And so now at the forefront of the news, if you Google nuclear, it's very likely that Iran or Russia is going to come up. Both of those things are going to now be associated with that ominous messaging by the Secretary of National Intelligence. In addition to elsewhere, Hegseth indicated that there was no indication that China was getting ready to move on Taiwan just yet. But indeed, they are putting themselves in a position to enhance their capabilities in that respect should the need arise. There was a massive explosion today at Engels Air Base, formerly known as one of Russia's foremost nuclear air bases. No longer, of course, as the bombers have been moved far away from there. Locals saw a large smoke column, and I have images of that, but I can't show you those today. There's been extremely high fighter jet presence over northern Israel as we speak. According to Vladimir Putin, he's saying that Russia must rapidly and significantly expand its ground force capabilities. Rapidly and significantly. He emphasizes that the nuclear triad remains a guarantee of sovereignty. And he orders that bases and airfields be ready for new weapon systems not placed in open fields. So bye-bye New START treaty. At this moment, at the time of making this video, drones are attacking multiple Russian regions, including Oryol, Tula, Ryazan, Tambov, Kaluga, Lipetsk, Kursk, and Belgorod. Now, let me just make sure that we don't have any other breaking news that is going on here at the time of making this video. I also want to share some information that I received, and I'm not going to post any identifiers because this person gave this information to me in confidence. Of course, I can speak about it generally. This is an individual who's worked in a major U.S. city. I'm not even going to say the city because I don't want somebody to be able to induce who exactly this person is. They've worked in the government for a couple decades and never seen anything like this recent push to get everyone aligned on emergency preparedness. The level of urgency, including drills and alert systems, is truly unprecedented, and the federal government is clearly ramping up efforts and strongly urging us to elevate our readiness. And yes, this is happening in many other municipalities too, according to my sources. We are literally holding fake drills at this point. This has never happened before, and the push for everyone to get certified through FEMA and with CIMS is unprecedented. So this aligns with what we are seeing, the mass mobilization of force throughout the United States. The National Guard, which is being deployed to numerous states or in the process of being deployed on the basis of protests that are relatively small by comparison to previous ones that only warranted the use of riot police. So they are getting prepared for something. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. As I indicated at the beginning of this video, typically when you have the evacuation of non-essential personnel from embassies, it can take months before an actual kinetic engagement materializes. However, in this situation, it's a little bit different. Trump has to convince his voting base that he was not the instigator in this conflict. So it has to appear as though Israel just did this haphazardly without his knowledge, and that they are merely now reacting to the decision that has just abruptly been made. And then, of course, they will have to come to the defense of Israel when Iran retaliates. If this is about to go down, everything is about to change. Because what this means, and this could be part of the reason why the Russians have been so patient, because they've been waiting for this front to open up so that the West would be preoccupied. Has the handoff to Europe been complete? Because if it hasn't, then there's the possibility that Ukraine will fall. And if Ukraine falls, that could be the linchpin that leads to major nuclear escalation, because the French and the UK will put troops in Ukraine. So, and then of course, once those two theaters of conflict are ramped up, that's when China could potentially make a move, when the US is preoccupied. So stay ready, stay vigilant. We have an interview with Alex Craner that I'm going to release later on today, and I'm likely going to have to do more updates with respect to this particular issue. So And I just want to also say I got some new information here. The decision that they're saying for this embassy evacuation isn't based on an imminent threat, but it's meant to help diplomatic families plan their departure. But the evacuation itself has not started yet. So this is not an abrupt evacuation that we are seeing. However, things are definitely heating up. And I actually received some information last week from somebody who's very well connected that suggested that things could potentially fly off the handle in the near term. They didn't specify where or what, just a, be ready for shit to hit the fan type thing. So yeah, I'm just checking here to make sure that we've covered all the bases up until this point. Okay. So preparations for evacuation from Baghdad were planned weeks ago, but Washington's sudden evacuation order followed after Iran Minister of Defense warned U.S. bases in the region will be attacked if Iran is attacked. U.S. Air Force high-frequency radio is active. The ground station mainsail is confirming the identity of 2 aircraft, call signs Rhetoric and Compress, as they join a secure communications network. This frequency is used for strategic and nuclear command activity. May be routine, but it also may be tied to some high-level operations. So guys, just remain very vigilant today, and if there's any preps that you need to top off, do not wait until day X arrives. Especially nowadays, when a lot of people are shopping online, it takes a week or 2 to get stuff shipped. So do it now if you have to do it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Please subscribe. A lot of people aren't doing that. Thanks for watching. Canadian Prepper out.